right. Well, welcome to parallel reasoning class. So what we're going to do is like the first hour and 15 minutes is just going to, there's some people here that are not in boot camp that are just here for the parallel class. And then we'll just end this class and then we'll just transition to kind of ending our boot camp whenever we finish here. Just FYI. So we will talk. So if we have any boot camp questions, just save them for that last part. So we can just focus on parallel questions. So how many people enjoy parallel questions? Angelica, yes. How many people were told like, oh, you should just skip them? And I probably have told you that at some point. How many people are still there where they're still just skipping them? Amara, okay.
Because you normally only have two. At max, you might have two, a reasoning and a flaw.
True. What I did on my test was if I got them in the first 18, I did them. And if I got them after 18, I skipped it and I would go to 26 and work my way back.
Mm-hmm.
So I would click, once I would get to it, so say it was number 19, I would put like C for it, and then I would go through and hit C for like 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Mm-hmm. And then I would start with like 25 or 26 and then just work back till I got to that question.
Yeah, because I'm starting to notice they're putting the parallel flaws towards the end, like 24, 25, 26.
I thought so too. And then I noticed in the 80s that they're like, oh, here's your first one.
Yeah, no.
Some of those are reasoning.
A bit of it, if it doesn't make sense to me within like the first 30 seconds, then I skip it so that I could go back to it. But yeah,
okay, yeah.
I've learned not to waste time on them anymore.
I like that. And so like, but they're great to drill for multiple reasons. One is they're great to drill because if you can get good at them, they actually are not very hard. They hardly ever are above a level 3 question. And so I think that their level of difficulty can not actually take up as much time as we think, because a lot of us have become significantly better readers in the time, even in the last month, right? A lot of us would say we've become significantly better and faster readers. And the other thing is that they're great to drill, especially parallel flaw questions, because you get to practice translating answers, like 5 different ones, and you get 5 different flaws where you have the opportunity to learn from. And so it's like you get so much into one question type that just makes me really excited. And so this is a drill that I would like us to do to start off with. That I think one of the things that we get very intimidated on flaw questions in general is matching the answers to what they're actually saying. And so I got this drill out of the LSAT Trainer book. So some of you may have seen it before, but hopefully if you have, you'll still find this extremely helpful. But we have some faulty arguments here. And so this is just like literally matching it to like what these answers are saying to those arguments. So go ahead and take like 5 minutes and do this. And then once you're done, go ahead and send me in the chat like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then just put what your letters are once you're finished. right, go ahead and take like 2 more minutes on this. Lisa. So I think this is also a really good exercise of whenever something seems overwhelming or when answer choices on the test seem overwhelming, break it down into a simpler task rather than anybody kind of just read 1 and read 2 and then 3 and then kind of just get lost from there and you're like, this is too much. I can get that way sometimes. Where when if that does happen to us on the test, what we have to do is simplify our approach to at least give ourselves a chance, right? It's just like our disagree questions where if it's way confusing, hey, let's just focus on one person and one side of it. So let's start with just A. It says, of course, what the mayor is saying is true. He would not be saying it otherwise. This never happens, but it's happening here. What kind of flaw is this, Jasmine? Do you know? Oh, you're on mute too.
For the first one?
For A.
Okay, of course, what the mayor is saying. So, just because, of course, what the mayor is saying is true, he would not be saying it otherwise. So, because the mayor said something was true, then he wouldn't be saying it otherwise. So, it's like a call.
It's not very common. It's a very common wrong answer choice. Does anybody know what this one? Brittany, do you know what this one is?
I thought it was it's mistakes of relative property for one that's absolute. I think.
No.
That's what I thought it was.
Amara, do you know?
I picked 5.
Okay, let's don't even focus on the numbers right now.
Oh, okay. So it's
What?
basically like you have to believe the conclusion in order, like, for the conclusion to be true. Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah, so what is that called?
Not helping the conclusion. I know. I can't.
Gennady, do you know?
Law.
Circular reasoning, right?
Circular reasoning. Yes, this is what circular reasoning is. And so yes. And so it is going to be 5, presents as a premise a claim that one would accept as true only if one already accepts the truth of the conclusion. So that's circular reasoning. All right. So Courtney, can you read B for us? And
Sure. In order to become a pop star, one needs to be able to dance well. Since I can dance well, I will become a pop star.
right. So these are where I did this, where I predicted the flaws when I was going through here. So what this is saying is in order to become a pop star, one needs to be able to dance well. So if I'm a pop star, which I am, what does that mean that I can do? Since I'm such a great pop star.
You're not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor. Yeah, I can just dance well.
Anybody get the reference though or no? From
I
Drake's.
think Akarshna did. Okay, so that means that I can dance well. And so since I can dance well, since I can dance well, I'm trying to say that I will become a pop star. What flaw is this, Patrick? Do you know?
Sufficient for necessary, or confusing sufficient for necessary.
Confusing. Yes, excellent. And what number did you say then?
7.
Yes, excellent. Interprets an assertion that certain conditions are necessary as asserting that those conditions are sufficient. So can we see here how whenever we're saying that certain conditions, we're interpreting that since a condition is necessary, we're then acting as if those conditions are sufficient. So what is our necessary condition here is that we can dance well, and we're acting as if since this is necessary, since I can do it, it's sufficient for me becoming a pop star. All right, what did we get for, oh, C is my favorite flaw ever. Jenny, what flaw do we see in C?
Since Jessica has more money than Tara, Jessica must be rich.
It assumes that I don't know what type of flaw it is, but I know what's flawed.
Okay, what's flawed?
It assumes that Tara is rich. Like,
Yeah, okay, I can see. Yes, absolutely. What, Victoria? You add that in the chat though. What flaw is it?
It's absolute versus relative, right?
Yeah, absolute versus relative. Do you see that, Jenny? Which you were spot on. Like, you're sufficient. You set a sufficient assumption for guaranteeing that Jessica would be rich. Because if we said that Tara was rich, that would mean that Jessica is rich. So excellent. So then for C, I put this for 4. All right, Eamon, can you do D as in dog?
Okay, so since eating sushi makes one healthy, not eating sushi makes one unhealthy. Okay. I went with 1. I'm not sure the inference from the fact that a certain factor is sufficient for a result.
Yeah, so we're saying, hey, since I eat sushi, it makes me healthy. So, and then we say not eating sushi makes you not healthy.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. And it concludes from the fact that a certain factor is sufficient for a result, that the absence of that factor, so the absence of that factor is not eating sushi, is sufficient for the opposite result. So that's unhealthy. Fabulous. All right, Ashley, can you do E, please?
I can. I'm sorry if it's a lot of background noise. I'm still at work. If I got sick after I ate that taco, the taco must have made me sick. For this one,
what flaw did you predict here?
So I don't know what type, but it's saying it would say like the taco is the cause of me getting sick.
Yeah, the
would
cause.
that be the
So
correlation? Causation.
Yes, because what is causation correlation flaw? Just because
you did one thing would mean like they're trying to group it together.
Like just because 2 things happen at the same time doesn't mean one caused the other, right?
Right.
Excellent. So what did you put for E? What number did you say was E?
So the only place I see causally is 2.
Yeah, so it takes for granted. So it's taking for granted that if a condition coincided with the emergence or the happening of a certain thing, so getting sick happened when I ate the taco, it must have been causally responsible. So eating that taco must have been responsible for me getting sick. All right, Cora, can you do F, please?
All right, I got fit by working out every day. If you want to get fit, you must work out every day. So for me, I automatically saw internal versus external flaw, because internal is talking about yourself, external is when you talk about somebody else. So whatever's good for me is good for you. And then, but what was hard was trying to find that in my answer choices.
Yeah, so I did not say that. I said I got fit by working out every day. If you want to get fit, you must work out. Mm-hmm. Someone else, I think, in the chat said that it was internal, external flaw, which maybe it is. I took this as like they're assuming the only way to get fit is by working out.
Right. So that would be 3.
Excellent. Do we all see that? I got fit by working out every day. If you want to get fit, you must work out every day. Like, is that the only way to get? Probably, but I hope not. Maybe like.
What is that flaw called again?
Cora said that it was internal versus external. I have never actually even heard of that flaw, which isn't uncommon. I took it as I got fit by working out every day. If you want to get fit, you must work out every day. I read this as, okay, working out every day is one way to get fit, but it's not, it's failing to consider or fails to address adequately the possibility that even if a condition is sufficient to produce an effect, it may not be necessary. So while working out every day is sufficient to help us get fit, that doesn't mean that working out every day is needed to get fit.
So I flipped B and F in terms of where they belong.
That's good. Okay, so you're plugging in your necessary and sufficient would be something I would be working on, Amara, like translating those. All right, and then the last one. Who wants to do the last one? Malika, do you want the hardest one?
Yeah, I'll take the hardest one.
Okay, go for it.
Since the managers at the company state that their employees are thoroughly grateful to be working under them, this must indeed be the case. I said it was 6.
Fabulous. And so why is this a generalization on a sample that is likely to be unrepresentative?
Well, we don't know which employees this manager has been talking to and how they feel about working for the company.
And why, and even more basic, yes, that totally could work, but even more basically, why is this? Lisa, do you know?
I kind of thought of it as the employees are working under them. Like, we don't know that because we're not talking to the actual employees. It's the managers that are stating it.
Yeah, it's like, has anybody worked for a boss before that thought they were great and they weren't great, and they would tell everyone that they thought they were great, but really they still weren't great?
Every damn day.
So yeah, so that's what's happening here, right? Like, just because the manager is saying that everyone likes working there is unrepresentative, because we don't know. I mean, like, it could be true, right? Like, I think there are genuinely good managers out there that could say this, and it could be, everyone's like, no. Okay, I've been blessed with good managers at some point in my life, and I've also had terrible ones. But sometimes, yeah, so that's where the bias, the unrepresentative sample comes from. Was this kind of a helpful exercise of translating answer choices? Even if you're going into the, okay, excellent. I think that doing this is a way that we can get faster. Like, we're struggling to get faster, like recognizing what answer choices are saying and knowing why they're wrong, even though they sound super fancy. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that sounds like it can be really, you know, like in the academia world, but it's not right. All right, so we're going to talk about the last question type today, which is parallel, which is a top-down question, which means that it is a tends to be a more mild answer choice. This is a question more than any other question, not any, that's too strong, but just as I would put this question up as any other question of, if it does not happen, it cannot be the right answer. So this is parallel. So think about parallel lines. Are parallel lines, is there any room for a mishap in parallel lines? No. And so if we're looking for something and it doesn't happen, it cannot be the right answer. So these are a great question to cross off wrong answer choices on, and really paying attention to that. But the thing where it's a little bit different than a parallel line is, do our arguments have to go in order and to be parallel? So, like, for example, so people are shaking their head. So let's say that we had that's a terrible color to choose on green. Let's say that we had a premise, like an argument that was like a premise and then conclusion, and then our answer choice is conclusion premise. That is okay in parallel, as long as what's happening in the argument is parallel to the other argument, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and dive into these a little bit more. Okay, so our goal in parallel flaw questions is to find the flaw in the argument and then find an answer that has the same issue. It sounds pretty easy, right? Everyone's like, does that sound, at least the goal part? Can we all agree that the goal of these questions is easy? It might be harder to get there, but we're just like, okay, we've got to find the same issue. So like, we all got problems. Let's find the right problem. Unfortunately, some of us have more problems than others. So if you're trying to parallel my problems, you probably wouldn't find anybody. But on this test, there will be one. And so what we're going to do first is read this. So it's the same approach. We're going to read the stimulus and find the conclusion. We're going to understand our reasoning. We're going to read the question and understand our job. So that means we're going to read the question. At this point, we're going to see, and I've added this step in because of, I think some people are not grasping, like they're reading the question, they're understanding the reasoning. When you read the question, it's okay to take 10 seconds and remind yourself, what is the goal of this question, or what am I trying to do? So I'm adding that step in here to kind of remind us, like, hey, this is what this is. So we read the question, we see it's a parallel flaw. Our job is to, okay, I got to go find the problem, and I got to find an answer choice that has the same problem. And so we understand that it's a flaw. So we have to figure out what's wrong. So that just means like finding that flaw. And then we're going to start getting rid of wrong answer choices. Dun, dun, dun. So these question stems are pretty easy to recognize. Which of the following, I think a lot of people can recognize them before they even read the question stem just because of the length of the question. Like they'll see like, oh, it's half a page. It must be a parallel question. But which of the following exhibits the same pattern of flawed reasoning as the argument above? And so earlier we did all of these different examples here, and we kind of were finding different flaws. So you know how like we kind of labeled all of these? You don't necessarily have to have these all memorized to be able to do it. But if we were going to find a parallel flaw, we're going to, how we said these flaws here, we're going to want to find an answer choice that is doing the same flaw. And so we can't have an answer. So if we're saying, like, for example, the ones that Amara flipped was, what did you say? B and which one?
B and F.
B and F. Like that, we sometimes it's really easy to flip these up and be like, oh, this is sufficient and necessary, this must be it. But it has to be doing it in the same way. And so that's kind of why we started with this drill, just to kind of see some of the different flaws and recognizing them and paraphrasing them so that whenever we dive into these parallel, we kind of know what we're looking for. All right. So go ahead and read this one, and I want you to think about what the flaw would be for a second. All right, so this one is kind of a, this one would be like a terrible thing to try to diagram. Lisa's like, yes. So essentially what we're saying here is all too many weaklings are also cowards. So how, in my head, I said all too many. So I'm just like, okay, so I translated. So I actually really liked what Karshna said earlier, or just give it a number. So I was like 70. 70 weaklings are also cowards. And so for those that were in class earlier,
it only works if you give it a group size too. You have to give it an overall group size.
Oh, 100. Like sorry, I should say that my group size will always be 100 if I don't state a group size, because percentages are easier. And so for those that were in class earlier,
sorry to cut you off, but what in the world is all too many?
I know, I have no idea. All too many. Like who gets to decide that? And so earlier, Akarshna had this awesome point where she said, especially on parallel flaw questions, whenever I'm trying to diagram it, I just give it a number, not to necessarily recognize the flaw, like not to make like a percent to whole or anything, but just to follow the logic of it. So that whenever we diagram it, because all too many is really hard to diagram, but if we say there's 70 weaklings that are also cowards, that's so much easier to diagram, right? I'm actually falling in love with this already, Karshna, literally.
So easy. There's this one question. I don't remember which one, but I'll send it to you later. I could not figure it out, and then I literally put numbers to it. It's the one question about like lawyers and athletes, how some of them are.
Oh yes, and like, and the answer choice is that some lawyers cannot be bankers, or some lawyers are bankers or something.
I can't figure it out with formal logic, and I was like, "What the hell? Am I stupid?" And then I put numbers to it. I'm like, "Oh, this makes sense." Because there's formal logic, don't do formal logic. Just put numbers to it because treat it like you're like, I don't know, like in 7th grade. It makes it easier.
Algebra. I'm just kidding.
Literally algebra. That's it. If you know how to add or subtract numbers, you can solve a formal logic question.
Okay, so we're saying 70 weaklings are also cowards. Okay. And few cowards fail to be fools. So I said, so one coward is not a fool out of 100. Thus, there must be at least one person who is both a weakling and a fool. Is that true that there must be one person who is both a weakling and a fool? What are our thoughts?
I would say logically, no.
No. And it goes back to also this 70, always remember the 70 is subjective, right? Like I put this in here. So the 70, because like what does all too many mean? So just because there's too many weaklings that are cowards and few cowards fail to be fools, that doesn't mean that one is both a weakling and a fool. Like we're trying to put these together, right? This weakling and a fool. So if I was going to look at this from a logical reasoning or from a diagram standpoint, how do we get from this 70 weaklings to this being a fool? So we're going to go ahead and look at these answer choices.
Let's say you count.
And tell me, everyone, go ahead and try this one and put your answer in the chat. And once you're finished, I want you to work through the other answer choices to like and figure out like what those flaws are just for extra practice. All right, so many of us are picking the most tempting wrong answer. All right, so let's go through a lot of these. Okay, so the most tempting wrong answer here is E, for us that got E. And that's because we need everything to be paired well. So one of the things that we need to pay attention to is the amounts or the quantifier words. So we're saying all and few and at least one here. And so in E, we're saying a majority of the voting population favors a ban, but no one who favors a ban is opposed to stiffer tariffs. So at least one voter is not opposed. We need there to be at least like a some or a few or something in here that's representing this, and few cowards fail to be fools. So this is too strong, and this is definitely the most tempting. And I guess I should have circled here all too many too. I apologize on that. All too many, because all too many is not actually all. All too many is like we have no idea what number, correct? Okay, so our right answer, oh, Cora, I'm sorry, Cora. Our right answer is C. So it's saying some painters are dancers. So we know that there's at least one painter that is a dancer. Or sorry, that's our conclusion. Since one painter are musicians, so I'm going to change this. So one painter is a musician. And one musician is a dancer. So we're trying to say from this, our conclusion is that one painter is for sure a dancer. So remember earlier how we had this drawn and I said, how are we trying to connect these two things right here in our structure? So if I drew this where we had all too many weaklings, so let's say one weakling, because all too many, we have no idea what that means. So one weakling is a coward. And few cowards fail to be fools. So let's say one coward is not a fool. And then our conclusion is there must be at least one person who is both a weakling and a fool. So one person is a weakling and a fool. So we're trying to connect, once again, these two parts right here. Okay, I saw an aha moment from Amara. Is anybody else following that? Yes, no, hating it, hating, good. Courtney, what do you think? Not getting it? Okay. These are definitely ones that you have to diagram. And I thought this was actually an easier question that we were starting off with. So I'm going to see what other question I have because we're going to do an easier one because that was really hard. Okay, let's do this one. All right, so we're going to do this one. What we want to do first is read our stimulus. So read your stimulus, find your conclusion, and find your answer, or find your reasoning. All right, Victoria, what's our conclusion?
Is it so she takes courses in a wide range of disciplines?
Yeah, excellent. And what is our support for that? Ashley?
The first sentence.
Yeah, both of them, right? Okay, so we're saying, hey, the student body at this university takes courses in a wide range of disciplines. So the university as a whole takes courses in a wide range of disciplines. And then we know M is a student at this university, so she must also take courses in a wide range of disciplines. What flaw is this, Courtney?
Sorry. The first one I thought of was overgeneralization.
Okay.
But now I'm not. Now I'm talking
Not
myself
100%?
out.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so the student body, so why does this answer choice, or why does our support not guarantee this? Patrick, what do you think?
Because it's assuming what's true for a general population is true for one individual in that population.
Yes, excellent. So we're saying, hey, since our student body has this whole thing, or this whole, since the student body has this one thing, every part or every student must also have that one thing. So that's what we're going to look for in our answer choices here. And so if it's not assuming that something of a part to if it's not assuming that every single one of the parts has the thing that the whole has, it's wrong. As soon as you don't see that, cross it off. And if you're finished, go ahead and work on translating the and figuring, or excuse me, reading the other answer choices, and if it's a flaw, determining what flaw it is. All right, let's start diving into this one. So what we're trying to do here is we're looking for something that is saying, hey, because the whole has this thing, each individual part of this thing must also have that thing. All right, so A is saying, was anybody kind of stumped by A for a second when you read it first? You're like, oh crap, this is going to be like a dead downward slope. They're all this tempting. But so A is saying the students at the school take mathematics. So if you are a student at the school, you take math. Miguel is a student at the school, so he takes math. Is A flawed? Nope, it's a valid argument. Read that, moving on. All right, let's go down to E. A lot of people were tempted by E. So we're saying here, the individual cells of the brain are incapable of thinking. So each of our little cells here of the brain, each individually, are incapable of thinking. Therefore, the brain as a whole is incapable of thinking. What's wrong with this one, Malika?
I think it's kind of going backwards.
Yes, we're saying because a part, each of the individual parts do not have something, therefore the whole does not have something, which isn't what we're not trying to go from part to whole. We're going from whole to part. Excellent. All right, Angelica, what about C?
It's reversing it as well. We need something as a whole and then to part, but this is saying part to whole.
Yeah, so we're going from parts here to whole. We're saying, hey, each individual of these individual parts are all heavy. Therefore, the overall thing needs to be heavy. That's wrong.
Yep.
All right, Cora, what did you think about D? As in dog.
Okay, so for D, all older automobiles need frequent oil changes. This car is new, so its oil need not be changed as frequently. Yeah, that is not a whole to part.
Yeah, and so like as soon as like I'm gonna diagram it out for us now, but as soon as I see that this is not whole to part, I'm crossing it off and not giving it the time of day. Literally, like not giving it the time of day. But what this is saying is all older automobiles need a frequent oil change. This car is new, so it does not need to, we don't know anything about being new based on this support at all. So the second that it brings in this new thing, it's like, okay, where do you get that from? We don't get to say that.
It's just a different kind of flaw.
All right, so why is B the right answer, Lisa? Which many of you got this right, so congrats. This one was easier than the first one I threw out there.
This is correct because it's doing exactly what the stimulus did. So we're talking about an editorial board, so many people, or more than one, and then Louise is on the board, so she is written. It's exactly like the stimulus.
Yeah, the whole is our editorial board. Since our editorial board has this trait of writing on legal issues, we assume that the part, so our part here is Lisa, also has that same trait. And so we're going from whole to part, just like we did over here with, I wrote student, but whole to part. Excellent. Any questions on this question?
Can you say why A is not correct again? Because I literally thought it said the same thing.
Because A is saying that the students at this school take math. So it's pretty much saying all students at this school take math. So any single student takes math. Okay. It's not saying like this school offers math.
Okay.
Brittany, the stimulus up on top says the student body. So I picked A originally, but I'm like, wait a minute, that can't be right. And then I went back and I was like, ooh, crap, I did the exact same thing you did.
Okay.
Yep, so if you go to the students at this school must take math. Miguel is a student at this school, so he must take math.
Okay, I'm there. Okay.
Awesome. No, great question. I thought I read A and I was like, oh, I hope I didn't pick another super hard question because I was like, that's a tricky one.
Nicole?
Yes.
For the question D, well, as soon as I saw all, I like removed it right away, like delete right away. Is that a good strategy or not? Because I know that we're looking for a mild answer and that's too strong. So I didn't really bother.
Don't do that based on these being mild. These are like, you need to practice them more before you recognize when they're too strong to cross them off.
I see.
Don't make that assumption yet, but there will be times when you can do that, but not yet.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Of course. And like everyone, go ahead and try this one and put your answer in the chat.